treat yourself like you had just gotten out of the hospital after a catastrophic car wreck. How long would you be prioritizing your health and recovery and prioritizing things like PT appointments and, wound dressings and all of that? Like, you don't have capacity to do all the things you would normally do to bake the cookies for the new neighbors and or whatever. As women, so often we overextend ourselves and want to take care of everybody else's needs, and we feel selfish if we are prioritizing our own needs. But what you're saying, Izzy, is so foundational, that self care and turning to what we need. I think there's a big buzzword in the culture about self care, like, oh, bubble baths and like face masks and like, like pampering. That's not what Izzy's talking about. I mean, that could be a bubble bath, could be good self care, but she's talking about something far more foundational,
Mm.
not only to starting to recover, but to actually survive and live with your spirit, body, and mind in alignment with your values and who God is calling you to be. It's so critical. You're right.
It is, Christian, and you hit the nail on the head when you say that it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. It's self-care. That's the kind of superficial side of self-care, bubble baths and those kind of things. And those things have their place, absolutely. But the fundamental self-care that comes out of the rebuilding of the self is attention to the inner world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And part of that is the therapy. I mean, I can give an example. My therapist, she's wonderful. She does child of origin work, so that could tackle some of my in-ground unhealthy coping mechanisms that I was bringing into my marriage, which weren't serving me, which were actually causing me to tolerate distressing and destructive behaviors without me even realizing it. So
Can you
when I
give me an example
sure of what? Sorry, of a
of
destructive.
the unhealthy behaviors or mindsets that you brought into the marriage that you've needed to work on to rebuild yourself?
Yeah, so I've never felt that I could say no um to most things, to decisions, or I was always too afraid. And really lying beneath that was the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
That if I said no, or if I got my way, that I might be rejected,
Yeah.
or I wouldn't be loved. It was almost tied to a performance thing. And without going too deep, just for the sake of time, that was very much something from my childhood,
Yeah.
where certain things happened to me where I realized I didn't feel I was able to say no. I had to say yes to everything, and particularly with my father. So again, the masculine energy, if you like, or figurehead in my life, somehow I interpreted that as I can't say no. I don't have a voice. So the therapy for me helped restore my awareness of, well, actually, it is okay for me to say no, and it is okay for me to have my way on certain issues. And if the other doesn't like that, well, that's okay. I don't need to fear a threat of rejection, or that person being unhappy. And again, there's a whole there's a whole story there of enmeshment and me being unhealthily tied. Some people like to call it codependence. Um, I think the trauma model would say that that's a trauma symptom that causes the the betrayed spouse to be emotionally traumatically tied to the emotions of her husband in order to survive.
Well,
So,
it was rooted in your childhood. It was a fawn response, right?
yeah,
That is a
that's
safety threat response to you will lose the attachment with your, in this case, with your dad, if you
yes,
use your voice and say no. And so in order to adapt as a child, you fawned, pleased, you just acquiesced and accommodated. And that gets woven into our brains unconscious
yeah.
patterns. And so, yeah, I appreciate you bringing up, like some people would call that codependent, but from a trauma model lens, that is actually a trauma response. And we carry that into marriage and other relationships.